This is a show that brings to the forefront newsmakers, entertainers, and those making a difference in our lives and in our world. Each week is a new adventure with topics ranging from the most serious and cutting edge to the most lighthearted and entertaining.
This is Taking Care of Business with Richard Solomon.
Greetings, everyone. Richard Solomon, Taking Care of Business. Welcome to the show. In many past shows, we've talked about technology, we've talked about cybersecurity, we've talked about computer dynamics, we've talked about technology in all ways, shapes, and forms. But if you ever notice when you're at the railroad station, in the courthouse, on the line at the post office, almost everywhere you go, at stop signs, people in their cars, what do you see? People are just constantly touching their cell phones and their mobile devices and looking, and you go to the dentist, you go to the doctor, you go to the barbershop. All you see is people not talking to each other, not really reading magazines or books anymore, and they're mostly reading mobile devices and not so much the reading mobile devices. So to talk about this, we're going to explore this topic in depth, especially with respect to the younger generations of people who maybe didn't really grow up going to the library as much to do research. And we have with us a person who's experienced in the fields of marketing, literature, authorship, Eric Losch. So thank you so much for joining us. By the way, in case you want to check him out, because I know that our technology folks out there are immediately going to the search engines. If you go to Instagram, take a look at ELO Author, ELO Author. And on the website, it's ericlosch.com. And we'll give you that again. So welcome to the show. Let's talk. So you see everybody sees this going on. People have their heads buried in mobile devices, not looking up. I think one of the saddest things I saw a bunch of kids in a park, and they were all sitting around looking at their mobile devices under a tree and not playing and not talking to each other. Is this the fate of our future?
Well, that's a great question. First of all, I just want to say thank you for having me on. I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. And I think our listeners are going to just love this topic.
I hope so. I really hope so.
Because they're probably listening on a mobile device.
Probably, yeah. Probably. But to answer your question, I hope not. But it is something that I definitely notice more and more. Like you said, people... It's like a weird combination because you see they're like in nature, they're outside, like you said, they're under a tree or they're in a park or whatever it is, but they're just like glued to their phones. And it's this weird dichotomy like between the two where it's like they want to be outside, they want to be in nature, but there's this thing in their hand, in their pocket that's just constantly pinging them, constantly trying to get their attention, and it's like hard to break away from, you know.
Well, what was interesting, I'll tell you a story, and I guess I'll share with the listeners too, since it's all of us together here. I was at a meeting, it was a number of years ago, and the person immediately to my left, this was a dinner meeting, and it was a cool meeting. And there was like a end of the year kind of thing, and this particular person had their mobile device just in their lap. I don't think their head was picked up for one moment. And the entire time was just texting to somebody who was obviously not at the meeting.
Right.
And I thought to myself, we all paid money to show up and to be a part of this event. And this is all way pre-COVID stuff like that. And and I was just wondering, why did you bother coming to this meeting if you weren't even, I mean, you were physically present, but you really weren't there. I mean, that person wasn't there.
Right.
And I see a lot of that now. People, I've been to restaurants, and I've seen, maybe a family of four, and they're at one of the square tables, and then literally all four of them are on their phones.
Yeah.
The mother, the father, and the kids, and they're all on their phones. And I'm thinking, this is like a harbinger of bad problems. Now, one of the things that we talked about in pre-production is, does all this technology stifle creativity?
Mm-hmm. It's definitely a complex issue because
that's why we have you.
Because on one hand, all this technology allows us to learn more if you use it correctly. You have more access to information. You have more access to other people to collaborate, to work together. So if you use it in that aspect, it could be very beneficial. The problem, in my opinion, comes from when it's abused, or when it, like you said, stifles creativity. So, meaning that it gets in the way of that time that you would be creative. I feel like a lot of the best work, a lot of the best ideas come from like boredom, from downtime, from time when you're not really doing anything, kind of, daydreaming or staring off into the distance, or sitting on a train, or, waiting for a bus or something like that. Those like in between moments of reflectiveness, and, the phone in your pocket or in your hand that's constantly pinging you kind of takes away from that. And I feel like it stifles that creativity, making it harder to come up with new and fresh ideas, and if you want to take it further than that might be why you see a little bit of that in movies and in many kinds of entertainment, where it's like you'll watch something or you'll see something and it's like you've kind of seen it already, you've kind of watched it already, and, it's like the lack of new ideas kind of is in the forefront in that medium.
Exactly. I noticed that they do a lot of repeats of things as opposed to new things.
Remakes, yeah.
Like remakes, or they revive something, or they'll take something and just kind of reformat it, but still based on the same idea. Whereas there's nothing that's like completely new, just like, wow, just something that I guess that they would say in Latin is sui generis, meaning just of its own thing,
Yeah. And I sit sometimes and I wonder how many great new fresh ideas might have been stifled, or not even like thought of because of this. I don't want to say addiction to technology, but it could be
preoccupation.
Yeah, there you go. That's a better word. But yeah, the preoccupation, with this technology that is stifling us. It certainly has an effect on me sometimes, and I have to actively work at it so that I don't have it affect me as much as possible.
Well, I'll give you a little bit of an insight. When I went to law school, we actually had to do all this research, and we went to the library, the actual physical library with books. And what was interesting is you would stumble on ideas and things while let's say you were researching, I don't know, topic A. So you go to a book or a treatise or something, and you'd find like the chapter or the subpart that really focused upon that particular issue. But as you were kind of like glancing through to find what you were looking for, you would see all this other stuff, and then all this other stuff would give you ideas like, that's kind of interesting. And sometimes when you're researching an issue, you would kind of stumble upon some things, and you'd add it maybe as a different idea or a different justification or a parallel or a footnote or a defense or something. And I felt that the research, even though it was much more labor intensive, was really robust. Now it's sort of like you do a search on a topic, and then whatever the search engines say is the answer, because most people don't. And you're a marketing guy. How many people look at the 10th page of a internet search result? They look at the first page. If that,
yeah. I don't even know what happens on that second page. Nobody knows what happens on the second page.
Right. So if you're the 50th page and that's the scholarly article that you wanted, no one's reading it,
Yeah, exactly.
So how does all this tie into marketing? I know that in many ways having people with phones means that you have an active source of targeting always available to you. But, you know, does that always work, especially if we're all preoccupied?
That's a good question. Well, actually, there is a much greater influence on, so I work in email marketing. So there's a much greater emphasis on creating emails that look the best on mobile, because statistically, more people read their emails on their phones than they do on a tablet or a computer. So that's definitely taken into consideration. So what we do is we will have the most important information right at the top, whether it's, you know, a deal or an announcement or something like that.
Your car warranty is about to expire?
Yeah. We make sure to, car warranty. We make sure to include the date right at the top so you know when it's about to expire. But stuff like that is taken into consideration, whereas, like you said, you know, if you were in a library or, you know, reading up on something, you might find the answer to your question like 50 pages down the line or something like that. But when it's made for today's audience, it's like, give me the answer right away, give me what I'm looking for right away, and just leave me alone. I'm going to the next thing.
So let's talk about you for a second. You have a free book, and the book is called The Tower of Blue, and it's free. And if you go to Eric Losch, Eric L-O-S, oh, I'm sorry, I always make this mistake, L-O-C, L-O-C-S-H.
Right.
.com. You'll see, get my free book. So how do you market your own book? What tactics do you use to drive people to the web to market yourself or clients?
I don't know if I should be saying I'm giving away all the trade secrets. No, I'm just
a couple.
just a few.
You know, the obvious ones.
Yeah. To get people to my website, you said?
Well, you want to, okay, all of us in business want to drive traffic. Knowing all that you do, what are the tips and strategies that you use to either drive people to your website or for the clients that you represent in the marketing world?
Well, you definitely want to give something away for free, which is why I listed my book for free, because the way I see it is that currency right now is not currency, it's attention. It's attention span, you know, which kind of falls in line with this whole technology topic. So I kind of look at it under that veil. So I think, okay, if I can get somebody to read my book, I have their attention, and if they like it, maybe down the road they'll want to invest their time into something else that I've written, and then maybe I can, you know, charge them like a few dollars for that kind of thing, or whatever I price it at. But I look at it as I want to get people's attention. So I'll give a free book. I've done like a few talks at like libraries and some schools, just, you know, to promote myself. And I have all my social media stuff that I promote as well. And even when I do these talks at schools and libraries, I also give away some free copies. I sign a few because, you know, it might be worth like $1 million someday down the road.
Let me get mine now. Well, you know.
I'll send it. It's already on the way.
There you go.
But I do stuff like that, and it's like a kind of a cliche, but you need to interact with your audience as well in any medium you can. So when I'm at these talks, I actually really do enjoy it. I enjoy talking to people, and I like thank them for coming, and I kind of I like to pick people's brains, and it's, you know, why did you like this story? How did it connect with you? And that kind of fuels me to write things in the future, stuff that will connect with other people and get their attention.
So what do you talk to with your live audiences? And do you discuss any of these technology issues, such as sort of online personas, marketing, screen time, anything like that?
Well, when I do these talks, I talk a little bit about like the book itself, The Tower of Blue, because the book touches a little bit on, well, actually it touches a lot on mental health. Because, you know, in the story, there's this young boy who kind of runs away from home, and he doesn't have a good home life, and he doesn't really feel like accepted and by his family and his peers and his friends. So I talk a lot about that kind of stuff, and I talk about my process as I was writing it, and it was a very solitary kind of process. And you know as well as a fellow writer, the process is very, very solitary.
Oh yeah, and long.
Yeah,
and long,
and long, and very, very long. Yeah, but I talk about that stuff, and kind of how it relates to mental health. You know, because as a young boy, or as a young adolescent, lots of young kids, you know, they're dealing with a lot of stuff all at once while they're growing up. And then, you know, you throw in technology into the mix, you throw in all the screen time in their face, and it becomes exponentially harder. So I kind of try to market my book in that sort of way. It's like a little bit of a deep dive into like the mind of a young child who has to deal with like all this stuff growing up on top of all the technology that's surrounding us.
We only have 2 minutes left in this segment, so let's start with this question, and then if we don't have enough time, we'll do the wrap on the wraparound on the other side.
Sure.
We were talking in pre-production that you kind of felt like you were the last generation of people that sort of lived without the burden, the yoke of all this technology and screen time and you know, am I liked? Am I being followed? Do I have friends? You know, even though these are not real friends. You know, these social media friends are just not friends. It's just, they're not, you know, friends are people you call at 3:00 in the morning and say, I broke my leg. Could you take me to the hospital?
Yeah, I need a ride to the airport.
Right. Those are friends,
like
you know, that kind of thing. So I mean, we only have a minute. So let's start that up, and then we'll take a break.
Okay.
But what do you think on that topic as far as you being the last of the people who were free of that burden? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember as a kid, I was in middle school, so math isn't my strong suit, so I can't figure the age right off the top of my head. What is that, like 15 or 15, something like that. I've
been in school a long time.
And I remember when I went looking for my friend, if I wanted to hang out with my friends, I didn't pick up my cell phone. I didn't send them a tweet, or I didn't none of that stuff. What did I do? I got on my bike. I rode around town thinking of all the places that we all hang out, and I would just ride around until I found them. And then I would find them, and we'd get into all sorts of trouble, and all sorts of, wacky stuff would ensue. But it just, looking back at it now, it was like such a simple, innocent time. And I didn't care who was there. I didn't care what we were doing. I didn't care if it was what my outfit was, if it looked good. Did I wear this outfit the other day? Did somebody see me? I didn't care. You just hang out with your friends. It's way less pressure, way less stress of like thinking that, are my followers going to like this? Is it cool enough? Do I look cool enough? There was like none of that pressure.
Well, speaking of pressure, I'm under pressure to take a break, so we'll be right back. This is Eric, and we'll be right back. Rich Solomon. Welcome back, everybody. Richard Solomon, Taking Care of Business with Eric Losch. Now, we've been talking about, in case you're just joining us, we've been talking about technology, the impact of technology, the impact on a technology preoccupied world, and its effect on creativity, sense of self, and lots of other things. In fact, maybe what we should do at some point is re-invite Eric back with a panel of psychology people and other experts and really talk about this. I do have read some there's a gentleman named John Elhai, Jonelhai, who I think he's out of the University of Toledo, I believe, and he's done some published works on the topic of sort of like mobile devices, over attention and things like that. So it's certainly it's a topic that's been studied a lot. It's been certainly the topic of some documentaries, and it's only going to become more and more an area of focus as time goes on. So, Eric, I understand you have some Instagram material. It's a website info for us. Tell us what you got.
Yeah, so you can follow me on my Instagram page. It's ELO Author, so ELO and then author, all one word. And I also have a website where you can purchase all my stories. You can also get a free book just by signing up. All you have to do is just give your email. The website is my name, ericlosch.com, and that's Eric, Loch.
.com. Okay.
.com, yeah.
All right, so go out there and get that free book, people.
Exactly. It's free.
And what are you going to do with that free book? You're going to read it on the mobile device that we're telling you to disconnect from.
Exactly. I'm perpetuating this cause that I'm talking about.
Right. Now, see, because isn't that really what this is all about? It's sort of the rub, which is we become more and more dependent upon the interconnection for information, meetings, discussion, ideas, how-tos. And yet, if that becomes the predominant form of information, then it becomes the only source of information, and all other voices and content are basically brushed to the side. And maybe that's not the best thing for a healthy society that wants to be informed broadly, Mm-hmm. So how does that all work into what you do on a day-to-day basis? Does it affect your writing? Does it affect your marketing? Does it affect your interactions with people? I know that, it's funny, in a choice of words, you said you could follow me on. Now, in the real world, if you get followed around, you get the police come.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, what's wrong? This guy's following me all over the place. And yet that's what we want now. It's like what you don't want in the real world, you seem to want in this world. Now, you don't want to have a billion friends in real life because you'd never be able to call them all and see them all, and then they'd be upset that, you have no time for
it'd be a nightmare.
Right. But on the other hand, you want 7 million friends because that translates to something else. So there's kind of a contradiction in all of this, isn't there?
A little bit, yeah, because, I'm here telling people to follow me and I'm talking about how I market some stuff in my job and in my hobby and my profession. But there's a little bit of of a dichotomy there, because at the same time as I'm marketing to people, I'm spending more time on these devices. I'm spending more time on social media. I'm spending more time on the computer. So it's a little bit like it's kind of tricky, and I have to kind of remind myself, or I have to be a little stricter with myself. So set time limits, or write out a list of things I want to accomplish for the day. Make sure all those things don't include being on my phone or being on my computer. Actually get some writing done. Sometimes I'll write by hand as well to try to mitigate some of the online time.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's a bit of a balancing act. And just piggybacking off of that, the book that I offer for free on my website, I wrote the first draft entirely by hand. So that's, I don't know, maybe 300 pages completely by hand.
Wow.
Yeah, and I don't recommend it to anybody, but I will say that it did allow for me to get really, really close to the work and really, really intimate with the work, where I feel like a lot of stuff is kind of lost on screen. For example, if I'm writing something by hand, if I make a mistake or if I have an idea, I don't like it anymore, I'll scratch it out, or I'll X it out, or whatever it is. and I'll write a few more pages, but I can go back to that and look at it, and I can kind of think to myself, like, oh, this is where I was at when I was writing this, or, oh, this was that idea that I had that I didn't like, and I crossed out and I went this direction. Whereas if you're writing it on, if you're writing something on your computer, what happens when you delete something? You just delete it and it's gone forever. You don't even remember what that idea was, so.
Well, which is why as a writer, I keep saving all the drafts.
That's also I should probably do that. I could save a lot of paper.
Right. But on the other hand, what it does is create so much digital clutter because you don't know what draft had what thing in it. And then you have to start reading and you figure, well, what was that? Was that, what month was that? And sometimes you are looking for a needle in a haystack. What's sort of interesting for many people is, at least what I've had in discussions, that people cannot write now on paper anymore. They're so used to having to go from the brain to the fingers, but the keyboard fingers, as opposed to writing. And I certainly see in many people, because they don't really write, their handwriting is kind of, not as fluid as it may have been. Yeah, because you see that, it's like, what did you write over there? What was that? What's that word?
Yeah, well, funny story, and this is probably embarrassing for myself, but I'll say it anyways.
Well, we have a delete button. Speaking of delete.
Okay, good, good. So if it's too embarrassing, then I'm going to run over and I'll delete it when you're not looking. But I remember one summer between school. I believe it was also maybe it was in middle school, or I'm going to say middle school, so I don't really embarrass myself and say I was in high school or college. But I remember one summer I hadn't done any writing. I was just watching TV, or I was playing video games. I wasn't doing anything, And I remember I went to my father's office. I went to go, help him out with some paperwork and stuff. And I was helping him with some checks, or I was like signing some stuff, or I was saying, this was paid here, that was paid there, doing some like book stuff for him. And I wrote the word paid, like, paid on one of the stubs, but instead of, I spelled it out P-A-Y-E-D. And I didn't even realize.
No spell check.
Yeah, no spell check. And like how you were saying, I hadn't written by hand in months, it was over the summer break. So I kind of lost some of that, that transference from my brain to my fingers. And that was just over a few months during a summer. So I can't imagine how difficult it must be, for kids nowadays when they're on their phones all the time, and especially during the summer breaks, how much they lose, how much of that education that they lose,
It's true. So I'll give everybody an insight here. When I took the bar exam, you can go to a bar review, and it's important because a lot of people, after they graduate, they use the time between graduation and the actual bar exam to do a review, especially if you didn't go to a law school in the state in which you're seeking your, license to practice law. And, you see it all over the place. People go to national law schools, and then maybe they want to go somewhere else or go back home or whatever it is that they do. And so you go to these bar reviews. Now, there was a particular bar review that I was aware of, and the professor in that bar review dictated. That's what he did. He dictated the entire thing. And you didn't get so much as a bar review book as much as you went there and you wrote. And one of the things he said in the classes was, number one, you'll remember more when you write. The second thing is, writing is a muscle. And you're going to be writing for like hours in this exam. And when you look around and you look at people who didn't go to this course, and they're shaking their arm, and they're just shaking it out, you're going to go like this, because those are the people with the weak muscles, because we're the people with the training. We've been preparing for this like an event. And I guess that kind of approach has been lost to technology? Because I have a feeling that all the exams now are more electronic in orientation, everything like that. And I just can't see somebody getting up on a stage in front of a big audience and then asking everybody to just write in hand the notes. And remember, this was a class that went on, day after day, week after week. So it wasn't like this was just a 1 3-hour stint and then, okay, well, we're good. No, this was like, I forgot, it was every day. I don't know if it was like 6 to 9 p.m., Monday through Friday for weeks, whatever it was. And there was just, it was a lot of writing.
Yeah, man. And it's like you said, creativity, writing and creativity, they're muscles, and if you're not working it out, it's just going to deflate to nothing.
Exactly. So,
yeah. So,
go
ahead.
Go. So, how does this in the email work that you do? How is all of this factored in? Attention span, over attention. How does this factor in? What are the great minds who are doing these marketing campaigns? What are they thinking and saying, and what are they effectuating?
Well, from what I've gathered, they are definitely taking a cue from social media, and that is in the form of personalization. So that's a term you might be hearing, or if you've already been hearing, all over the place. Personalization is the way to get people's attention these days, especially in the current generation we live in. And I'll throw myself in there as well. I'm not pointing anybody out. But attention spans can be very short.
What'd you say? I'm sorry, I was just looking at my phone. No, just kidding. but I'll tell you, I've seen that where I'll talk to people and they're all like looking down, they're zoned out, and then it's like, then they look up, they go, "What did you say?" And I see that. I also see that in court too, where people are like looking at their phones or checking their email during a court proceeding. They're doing it in their laps, and
that is scary.
And like they'll say like, "What did that person say?" And I'm like, they said we're in contempt. No, just kidding.
It's going to be a wild day when they allow phones in like operating rooms and stuff like that. It's going to be scary.
That's right.
Hopefully, it never comes to that.
That's right. The brain surgeon gets a text. It's like, I just got a news alert. I got to check it. I got a coupon.
Yeah, the surgeon has to check his Twitter real quick. Hang on.
So continue.
So what I was saying was, personalization is kind of the way that they're trying to grab people's attentions or to satisfy their kind of like the sort of instant gratification kind of world that we live in. So they'll start to include people's names. They'll start to include stuff that they've already purchased in these emails. It's like, hey, you bought this TV, this brand new TV you just bought. What would go great with that? A sound bar. And here's a bunch of sound bars for you to choose from. And just from, the work that I've done and the numbers that I've seen, this works like incredibly well. It's like a sort of like a post-purchase mentality, post-purchase approach that is tailored to you. So it's almost like you have like a personal shopper that's kind of with you, like guiding you along. And that kind of seems to be the trend, at least in the marketing landscape.
So if I get an email that says, "So if you like the Tower of Blue, you'll love..."
You'll love all of Eric's other work.
Exactly. So we're up against in 3 minutes, actually 2 minutes. We have to take a break. So I'm going to ask this question, and then we'll answer it on the other side. But do you see, taking out the crystal ball and looking a little bit into the future, do you see a backlash at some point against all this technology, that people are just, I don't know, numb from it or bored of it, or it just doesn't give them the thrill anymore, and it's just, same old, same old. Do you see that?
That's a good question.
That's why I'm going to give you a minute to think about it. So this is Richard Solomon and Eric Losch, Lochsh. I got the spelling right.
That's right.
And you think I should know it, right? Lochsh, ericlosch.com, and on Eric Lowe author. I'm sorry, Elo author.
Elo, yep.
On Instagram. And if you want his free book, The Tower of Blue, go to his website and check it out. On the other side of this, we were going to answer our question of, will there be a backlash one day? So keep it locked in. Hey everybody, Richard Solomon. Welcome back to our show. Thanks for listening. Thank you for being a part of our radio family and joining us and exploring all kinds of topics with all kinds of experts, authors, historians, scientists, people from the armed forces, and just psychology people, and just all kinds of cool stuff. So since we are talking about technology and social media, you can check us out on all of our social media platforms, especially the SolomonChannel.com, which is sort of the main place, and also our YouTube channel. And if you search under the term TCB Radio WCWP, you'll find hundreds and hundreds of shows. And for all those people out there who subscribe and listen, thank you. Okay, so Eric Losch. On the other side of the break, I asked the tantalizing question is, will there be a backlash or a big so what moment down the road with all this technology and social media where people are like, been there, done that? What do you think?
I think it's definitely not a black and white answer. It's very gray because you have people that they're all in, they're diving in head first into this technosphere that we are in. And then you have people on the other side who are kind of trying to take it back a little bit. I kind of see that in the way people shop a little bit. I feel like handcrafted goods, things that are homemade, things that you can buy on Etsy or other like marketplaces, are kind of gaining a lot of popularity. And if I could throw it in there as well, my book is also a handcrafted thing. So And
why does it not say handcrafted in the USA, like with a big seal or something on the front page?
It will after this. That okay. I can guarantee. But yeah, I see a lot of that going on, and that also kind of ties into the whole personalization topic that I was kind of talking about, because people want to buy not only handcrafted things, but they want things that have their name on it, or it's a quote that they thought of, or a saying that they enjoy, something like that. You can buy things that are totally tailored to you, and they're made totally by hand. So I see that. I see that in people, and then I also see the other side where people are, like I said, diving in headfirst into this technosphere, and I don't know which way is the best. I don't think going one way or the other full in is a good idea. I think having a good mix is kind of the best way to go about it, because, and it kind of ties into the whole kind of where we started with creativity. This technology that we have is very beneficial. It can really, really help us. It does help us in research and collaboration, but you don't want it to get in the way of that personal time that you have to sort of craft your own thing, whatever it is, even if it's not writing.
Well, one thing that you said was very true is that, the internet and all that information allows us to research and find out things. I'm sure all of us have benefited from looking things up, from all the how-tos. I know that how-to in the things that I've attended as lectures on marketing and things like that, that, the biggest real use of the internet is how-to. And I've talked to people like, people who are like, mechanics and plumbers and things like that, or photographers, and they will go onto the internet and they will look up how to use a particular product, how to install something, how to clean something, how to service something, how to do something. And you see a lot of these videos, like say for cameras, where they take the equipment, they take it out of the box, they show you how to put it together, how to format it, get it going. And I think a lot of that has replaced the user manuals that no one ever read.
Yeah. And that's not to say that, I'm definitely not dogging on the internet and technology as a whole. I guess my view is more of like a weary kind of like a call to action kind of thing. Not that we need to dismantle it and destroy it kind of thing, because like you said, it can be and has been very, very, very beneficial. So my view on it is that we really need more of like a balance. And that's kind of a little bit of my fear, I guess you could say, as I look into the younger generations and how they're kind of growing up. I can even see that I have a young a 2-year-old niece and a 5-year-old nephew, and I see how they're growing up, and they're so full of creativity and wonder, and they're so viciously consuming everything that's in front of them and gaining so much knowledge and like growing up before my eyes. And I worry a little bit, to myself. I think to myself, man, I really hope that they don't become sucked into this. I called it before technosphere. I don't know if that's correct, but I really hope they don't get it sucked into that and lose all of that pure creativity and wonder that they have.
Well, the one thing that I've always been at least proud of is that we have not lost the art of children's books yet. There are still, people buy books for children, still children's, from very young ages get these things called board books, and then there's all these other books and bathtub books and whatever. And it's good that they're actually not holding electronic devices. I'm not sure, what your brain does with all of that light. As far I've read things that say you're not supposed to really read these devices a couple hours before you go to bed because it sort of interferes with your sleep process. I'm not a doctor. I don't know. It's just these are just things I've read. But I think this goes to your balance. I know people who say when you come to our house, you got to put the phone away. Don't put it on the table. In fact, I was talking to my one of my neighbors in the office, and he was saying in his house, he has a number of children, and when they come, either if they live in the house or they come from where they are and they're visiting, that phone gets holstered. He's very, we had that discussion today, literally a few hours ago. And he was very steadfast on that, as we are not going to be people who just text and email and pick up the phone every time it dings. We're going to sit down, we're going to talk, we're going to enjoy our dinner as our family. And he's he's just very firm on that. And we were talking about that today. So it's interesting because I guess different levels of generations look at all of this very differently. I guess the generation that just got to go out and play and ride bikes and not worry about anything and not have to worry about answering machines and messages and all this other stuff, really had to some extent a large amount of freedom, but not necessarily connection. And, if you got in trouble, you weren't able to just pick up a phone and call somebody to help you. You actually needed the real network of people to actually, call upon friends, neighbors,
the village.
Yeah, exactly. In the old days, if you had your car broke down on the side of the highway, I gather you had no rescue. Maybe there were CB radios and some other things, but it's not like today where you call road service and they come. They just ask for your ID number. So in some ways that's good, but I guess this is it's all about the trade-offs, because that seems to be our theme. Creativity versus being stifled, information versus awareness. It just seems that it's all things that need to be reconciled.
Yeah.
Will we need in the future training to actually learn that balance? It's a serious question.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I actually never thought of it that way, but I think that we probably should, especially for generations that haven't even been born yet, because they will not know a world that didn't exist, without technology. I mean, there's generations now that also have that, but like their parents grew up without it, so they can kind of pass that sort of learning on to them. But there will come a time very, very quickly where there'll be generations that have nothing to lean on, no like older generation to kind of lean on for that perspective. So I think so, and not in a way where to stifle anybody or to deny anybody, the sort of internet freedom that we all have, but in a way to keep them balanced, to keep them level-headed, to not have them consumed, have their whole lives consumed by this.
Right, but will this training be more, or will it need to be more than simply taking a break from it? I think so. Because it's hard to teach creativity. It's hard to teach curiosity. It's hard to teach exploration, but wouldn't really that be what's necessary?
Yeah, it's like I'm imagining a college class right now where the whole class is they just sit outside for like an hour and a half and just stare into the sky and they do nothing, and that's kind of trying to open up their creative minds. Well, and it sounds a little silly, but
actually, okay. So I had a friend who talked about a class like that in college, and he talked about this particular professor, and I won't give too many details, but he said, we'd be outside, poetry, reading, and literally like, he would fail everybody. So it's like, poetry, reading, reflection, F. And everybody's like, what are you talking about? And then So if a particular friend of mine is listening, we all know this story, but he would say, oh, yes, outside, sunshine, flowers, poetry, reflection, breathing, air, nature, the wonders of the world.
That is funny.
So I guess he would rather just have a good old-fashioned book test,
Yeah. Well, as hippy-dippy as it might sound, I can see a world where that is a very, very important class, and it kind of reminds me of, I'll go back to my nephew, my 5-year-old nephew, and I think my niece to the same extent. They learn yoga in school, which maybe a lot of listeners, to them it's very normal, but to me, I like yoga in school. Like I remember like throwing kickballs at like people's faces and, like stuff like that. So it just kind of, there's like this sort of shift to, starting kids at a young age and helping them learn how to, quiet their minds and move away from distractions and that kind of stuff. You can already see a kind of shift, so a class where people just stare at the sky and do nothing might not be too far away.
Well, it's funny. I see in my day-to-day endeavors a lot of people saying, I'm bored, or kids say, I'm bored. There's nothing to do. And I kind of look at them going, there's always something to do. And yet, I think because there's too many choices, it's like even like podcasting. How do you even pick what to listen to? Because there's 7 billion podcasts. I mean, there's every topic: history, science, technology, how to, whether this is good or that good, all the sports analysis, sports history, everything, inside this and whatever.
Yeah, it goes on and on.
Right. Music galore of every kind and concerts of every kind and every kind of music, and people and stories behind the music and stories behind the music, people. And at some point, it's like, I only have an hour. Like, how do I pick? It's like, all right, so I'm on the beach. I want to like listen to one podcast, just chill. How do I pick one out of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of choices?
Yeah.
And
by the time you decide, the sun is already set.
Right, and it's like by the time I get to the table of contents, I'm only up to C and I'm exhausted.
Yeah, it's challenging, really, really challenging, and it's challenging for me, and it's challenging for you, it's challenging for me, and imagine how it's going to be for these kids as they get older.
Exactly.
There's going to have to be some kind of class or lesson or something like that to help kids
refocus,
deal with all this stuff, And I would say that would occur in a perfect world, but I'm coming from a learning institution where they taught me the recorder in music class, which is completely useless right now. So I have faith, but I don't know if I have too much faith, but it could happen.
So we only have a minute left because sadly these shows go very fast because they're conversational and they're interesting, and we're not looking at our phones, to get the questions, and the answers. What are you working on next? What's your next big book or endeavor? Yeah,
so I've got the book, and also on my website is a short story. It's called Possum Stew. It's like a dark comedy, a lot different than the book that I wrote. But right now I'm working on, I'm kind of focusing on short stories right now. And my hope is once I have enough, I will put them all in a compilation and, print it and actually have it for sale. It's like a short story compilation. But the story I'm working on right now kind of ties a little bit into what we're talking about. It's sort of this twist on the classic superhero tale. You have your superhero and sidekick. One side is the older generation and kind of doesn't understand the young people, and he's kind of doing things the old-fashioned way. And then you have the sidekick who's very into the current times, very up-to-date, kind of does things his own way, and there's like some conflict between the two, and it plays in with this whole thing that we've been talking about, this whole time. So I'm working on that right now. That will hopefully I'm aiming to release it by end of summer. And of course, if you follow me on all my social media and my website, you will know exactly when it's out. All right.
We're out of time. So for all those who listened, thank you. And if you missed any part of this, we'll have this all archived and podcasted in all these other great places, and you can always listen to it on the radio station app as well. So for now, thank you for listening. We'll see you all next week. And it's Eric, Losch. Check him out. Thanks for listening. What I really need, some kind of affection.
don't go.